Alrighty, thank you all for joining our webinar today. And thank you to everyone who submitted questions ahead of time. Just as a general reminder, please feel free to drop any questions into the chat during the webinar. We'll address them afterwards during the overall Q&A session. So this webinar is scheduled for half an hour. The content will be within that 30-minute mark. We will stick around afterwards for anyone who is interested in a Q&A as well. And again, this will be sent out to everyone after the webinar is finished as well. So we will all have the recorded video here. So with that being said, thank you all for joining us today. Today's webinar is around delivering a native Windows app experience on Chrome OS with cloud desktops. We are joined today by Daniel Kane, Technology Partner Lead with Google Chrome. We have Andrew Miller, the CEO of Cameyo, and we have Cody Sparks, Sales Engineer here at Dido. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to Daniel, who's going to get us started with the webinar. Thank you all once again.
Thanks, Jacob. So yeah, as Jacob said, Daniel Kane, I'm the tech partner lead for the Chrome OS team based in EMEA. And I'm just going to walk you through a bit of a vision that we have on between Chrome OS and Cameyo around modernizing computing. So first, to take a bit of a step back, right? We've all been on quite a journey over the past couple of years with the pandemic. I think we all have to accept that the way that we work has changed quite substantially. We're now very used to seeing people joining calls from an upstairs bedroom, their living room, their deck on a sunny day, whatever it is, and like the workplace that we were used to before this has fundamentally changed for an awful lot of people. But then if we actually think about the change and what we went through, like, it's been phenomenal, right? This report from PwC on remote working found that on average enterprises set up remote working in just 11 days. And execs are telling us that they've moved to digital processes at a speed of 40 times quicker than they had ever expected. So that's just phenomenal, right? If you had asked these enterprises before the pandemic what it would take for them to move to a remote work or a hybrid work scenario, I guess that half of them probably would have told you it was not possible for their businesses, and the other half probably would have given you time measured in months or years, not 11 days. And overall, the change has been seen as a success, right? Employers are telling us that on average, after the bedding in period and people got used to the new ways of working, most people are quite happy with where they've landed. But one thing that we do need to address is legacy endpoints. The devices that we've been giving to employees were not built for this working environment, right? They were definitely not designed to be deployed remotely to end users and shipped directly to them. Our security models were not designed for everybody working at home on their own internet connection and connecting into the office or connecting to SaaS solutions. They were absolutely designed with a perimeter in place and like a firewall that you had to get out through to get onto the internet. And then we're not in a good place when it comes to actually understanding what applications and versions of applications are running on our devices, and even which devices end users are using to do their work and to connect into corporate tools. And overall, this has led to inefficiencies and has disrupted the way that end users work, right? So we feel that there's a better way. And again, a report here from Adobe on the state of work in 2021 reported back that almost half of employees said that they're likely to leave their current job because of outdated technology. So we definitely have to take this serious. So at Chrome and at Cameyo, we believe that the cloud is the solution, and cloud-based solutions are the way forward, and that these types of solutions will lead to more productive employees and increased security, regardless of where people work and across different verticals and use cases. And we're going to go into the reasons why in a bit more detail. But in particular, we're talking about increased security and built-in security, and easier and faster deployment and better management, a more modern experience and giving users tools that they want, more like what they have in their home lives and as consumers. We're very aware that there's legacy applications that need to be brought on this journey, and we're going to talk about how Cameyo helps you to modernize those applications and deliver them as progressive web apps. And then businesses are absolutely pushing us to both be an economically smart choice, but also to ensure that we're thinking about the environment and that we've got an eco-friendly approach to what we're doing. So again, we'll dig a bit into that as well. So first, talking about security. At Google, we're very proud of this statement, right? So Chrome OS has been in the market for about 12 years. We've had 0 reported ransomwares on the OS ever, right? There has never been a report of a ransomware attack on Chrome. And to dig a bit deeper as to why that is the case, Chrome OS, from its foundation, was built with security as a core pillar. Any update to Chrome OS that we developed or feature that we launched went through rigorous security validation before launch. And as I say, it's built into what we're doing. So things like active threat protection, both at the OS level, but also on things like the Play Store and on the Chrome Web Store, ensure that the applications running on the device are secure, that there's nothing running on the device that should not be running on it. The operating system itself is primarily read-only, so there's no way for an end user or a malicious application to modify OS level files. And the way that we check against that is using a system called verified boot. So every single time that you reboot your Chrome OS device, we go through this verified boot process, which checks from the firmware right up to the OS that all of the layers of the operating system are running software that's been signed by Google and delivered from our servers. We also block executables from running on the device. So essentially, there's nothing for a third-party antivirus software to scan against, right? There's the OS has been signed by Google, and you can't just download and install an application. And then where Cameyo come into this story is if you do have legacy applications that were built bespoke for your company, perhaps they traditionally would have been seen as another vector. But again, those applications are now running in the cloud on cloud servers and not on the endpoints that your end user is using. On top of all of that, when you're talking about Chrome OS and the enterprise, we give you huge flexibility in terms of how you manage your devices. So using the Google App Main Console, you have controls over app delivery and installation, the ability to disable or wipe a device if it's been lost or stolen, or if it gets to the end of its life, and a whole slew of advanced security controls that lets you as the administrator set up your environment the way that you see fit. Another important point for us here is around updates. So OS updates, we push an OS update for Chrome every 4 weeks, and frequently security updates, even more frequently than that. But updates on Chrome OS all happen in the background. There's no interaction for the user. They don't need to press on anything or do anything. They may get a prompt just to reboot their device at the end, at which point the device will be back up in 8 or 10 seconds, and they'll be on the new version of Chrome OS. So there's much less for you as an administrator to do to manage OS updates and patching. And then on top of that, again, Cameyo is making sure that all of the HTTP, HTTPS, and RDP ports are closed. And they also eliminate the need for things like VPNs, right, which has traditionally been a pretty significant attack surface. The second point that we cover here is around deployment and management, right? So again, we've got a good stat here from ESG that Chrome OS is 76% faster to deploy than Windows 10. And again, in a distributed workforce where people are working from home or working remotely, it's really important that we can streamline this, right? So using our zero-touch enrollment process, companies can drop ship devices directly to the end user. An IT or an admin never needs to unbox the device or image the device. They can send it straight to the user who connects to their own Wi-Fi. The device enrolls, and they get their corporate policy pushed down to their device. Again, deprovisioning is really quick. So if a user was to leave the organization, within a couple of clicks in the admin console, you've disabled that device and it's ready to be returned. But also if a user was to change from one org to another, or say in retail, you had a device that was being used in the storefront and you wanted to start using it in back office, those kind of redeployments are really quick as well. Essentially, in the Google admin console, a device just needs to be moved from one organizational unit to another. So within seconds, you've redeployed that device. And then, as I touched on, we've got over 500 policies that let you do things like control updates, install and manage your applications. Yeah, you've got a full set of management controls. And again, this saves you from having to push down images to devices. All of the corporate policy is set using the admin console. And then we touched on the need for a modern employee experience and making sure that users are able to work from anywhere. Again, some nice stats here that Chrome OS reduces downtime for every single user by roughly 3 hours per week when they move to Chrome OS. So again, a pretty impressive stat. Chrome OS starts really quick. So like when we're pushing out a new version of Chrome OS, the aim is to get the boot times to approximately 8 seconds. So that's from pushing the button to being at the login screen should be around 8 seconds. And regardless of how old the device is, we check this across all of the devices that we're currently supporting. So your devices should not slow down with age. Again, we have a huge amount of form factors. So laptops, convertibles, desktops, all-in-ones. So we have the right device type for your customer's use case. And obviously, being able to access all of your applications without VPNs or needing to provide a Windows virtual desktop means that the user can get straight to the application that they need, and they're not worrying about authenticating against a VPN or getting into a virtual environment. I've already touched on updates, so I'm not going to dig into that too much more. So then just digging a bit deeper into applications. So what I love about Cameyo is that it lets you easily take an existing Windows application and essentially turn it into a progressive web app or like a web application without having to do any development work. So this is a transition that a lot of companies are thinking about, how they take their old traditional Windows applications and what the future looks like. How are they going to provide these as web services? And Cameyo just takes away that pain, right? You can just lift and shift the application that you have into Cameyo, and then using Chrome web browser, you can access it from any Chrome OS or, in fact, any device with a browser. Then on top of that, using the management console that I mentioned, your Windows applications are pushed via policy. So you're no longer downloading an application. You don't need administrator rights to install the application. You're not talking about taking up space on the local device. And also the user profiles on Chrome OS mean that the user policy and therefore their applications will follow them regardless of which device they log into. So let's say you've got a user whose device fails and you need to ship them a new device. As soon as they sign in, they've got all of the same applications that they had on their old device. Or potentially you could have a user who decides that the day that they're in the office, they're not going to carry their device. When they get into the office, they're going to pick one up off a loaner rack and sign in on that device, and they can just continue on with their work with all of their applications and data stored in their profile. And Cameyo is also integrated with the local file system on Chrome OS. So this means that things that the user expects to be able to do, like opening, editing, saving files within their text editor, as an example, work exactly as they expect, right? Once they click open, they can view all the local files on their Chrome OS device, and it's saved as the same thing, right? It saves into the local file system. Chrome's also a smart investment, right? So again, some nice stats in this deck, but almost $500 saved with every new Chrome OS device that you buy. You also see less downtime, right? So as I touched on, you're reducing as much as 30 minutes on average per device per week, which is pretty significant in a big organization. You're avoiding security risks. So as I said, first you avoid the spend on things like antivirus and encryption software, but also it reduces the chances of you being hit with something like ransomware. So therefore you're avoiding the costs associated with a breach. And this doesn't even touch on Chrome OS Flex, which is the ability to take Chrome OS and to put it onto existing hardware, right? So if you've got devices that are coming up on a refresh, say Windows 7 to Windows 10 or 11 type refresh, you can save on having to go and purchase new devices and get a longer lifespan out of your existing hardware by using Chrome OS Flex. Which leads nicely into what I believe is my last slide. It's also an eco-friendly investment, right? So Chrome OS uses less energy than comparable devices. We have taken technology that we built primarily for Android around how we consume battery and how we charge battery, and we've built that into Chrome OS, which means that we actually use less power. And then on top of that, obviously, if you're running your applications through Cameyo from the cloud, you're using less CPU and potentially less GPU on the endpoint, meaning that the battery will last longer and therefore need to be charged less as well. And as I said, with Chrome OS Flex, you can also increase the lifespan of your existing hardware, meaning that you're not needing to recycle old devices and you're not consuming new devices at the same rate. So that's the end of my presentation. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Andrew, who's going to bring us through a demo of Cameyo running on Chrome.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Daniel. I'll share my screen here once you've logged out. Thank you. So really appreciate that, Daniel. That was a great overview of Cameyo and Chrome's value proposition. And I'm glad you mentioned Flex as well. Flex is such an important part of the Cameyo experience, whether on Chromebooks, Flex, etc. I'm going to spend all of my time in the product. I'm not going to go through slides, etc. But from a high level, what Cameyo is a very ultra secure way to deliver all of your applications, your SaaS, your Windows legacy applications, your Linux, as well as your internal web applications to any device, specifically Chrome. But through our integrations with everything we're doing with Google, it makes Cameyo probably the best choice when it comes to delivering these applications. Daniel talked a lot about end user experience and PWAs, so I'm actually going to start there. So if you'll notice, I'm running on a Chromebook, okay, and so I'm launching a basic Windows legacy application, Word, from my Chromebook. You can see here it runs as a PWA. And you have your choice of running it as a PWA or on the website. You can see it's exactly the same experience that the end user would expect in terms of look and feel. All of your shortcut keys work. Your copy and paste works. Everything's going to work exactly the same as it would if they were using a native app on a Windows device. Daniel also touched on the ability to save and open files from the local machine. And that's something that's very unique to Cameyo in terms of native device file system integration. And what we've done is we've made it very easy. You're simply just going to click on this My Device right here. And then what you're going to do is your Chrome file dialog box will automatically open up. And then you just select a folder and select a folder within that folder as a subfolder. And then you're just going to give us permission to open that. So you're going to just click here, click there. And now I have access to those files on my device. You can also see, and you can save and open to that. You can also see that we integrate with all of your major cloud storage providers like G Drive, OneDrive, etc. And all this is customizable. And I'll talk a second about integration with your single sign-on and security in just a little bit. But all of this is customizable. So your users, the users are only going to see what they have access to. So if it's a Google Workspaces environment, they're only going to see G Drive and their shared drive, their personal G Drive and their shared drive. And then if you allow it, they will have access to their local files as well. So very, very seamless experience with Cameyo. And one of the things that one of our focuses is how we differentiate ourselves from other solutions out there is we are extremely simple. So very, very simple, extremely secure, as I mentioned, ultra secure, cost effective, and flexible. So let me show you how easy it is even to get started with Cameyo. So most users, most of our customers are able to come in and get started with Cameyo without much of any touch from us whatsoever. So once you're ready to start with Cameyo, let me go back here, sorry. Come on, there we go. So what you're gonna do is you're simply going to select the closest data center to you. Oops, here. Simply going to select the closest data center. If you want to run, so Cameyo runs in two flavors. One is fully hosted, which runs in our Google Cloud environment. You can also run self-hosted in any environment. So if you're still on-prem or you have your own GCP environment or another cloud environment, you can absolutely run Cameyo in those environments. Cameyo is a great solution for anybody who is in the process of moving to the cloud. But if you want to use our fully hosted service, you're simply just going to select the closest data center to you, click Create Now, and that's going to spin up a Windows Server 2019. If you want to use our self-hosted, all you need is a Windows Server 2016 or above, and then we give you instructions on how to install Cameyo right on top of that Windows Server. It takes about 10 minutes, and then everything that I'm going to show you going forward is exactly the same. So once I have that server spun up, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to access that server, and then I'm going to load and start loading my applications. So if I access the server, and all of this is wizard based the first time you use it, so it's very easy. We make it very simple. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm accessing the Windows server that I just created, and we give you the ability to add applications via the browser, or just simply dragging and dropping those install files right here. So if I go out to the internet and grab, say, like a notepad or something like that. Now, the vast majority, notepad, the vast majority of our customers are using Cameyo for business critical applications. This is just a very simple application that we're going to grab just so we can show it. Why don't we grab the Happy Users edition? We'll go ahead and download that onto the server. There you go. It's on the server. It's loading onto the server as we speak. And you'll notice this is very similar, or it is the exact same way that you would install an application on a Windows device. So if you don't have a lot of technical experience, you can come in here and get started with Cameyo pretty easily. So we can see here we're running it on the server. Everything looks great. So I'm going to go ahead and by the way, this is where you would put your configuration keys and any type of customization that you would need. Then once I have that done, I'm just simply going to come over here, look for the application that I just installed. There's Notepad right there. I'm going to click Apply. I'll get a notification that it's been published. And then what it's telling me is to go back to the admin console. And there you can see Notepad has just been installed. That was not here before had I showed you it. So very simple to get up and running with Cameyo, very easy to install applications, and just as easy to get the application to the end user. Everything's controlled by this unique URL right here. So all you're going to do is simply provide that to the end user. You can do that, and then all they do is click on that application. It launches in the browser. You can see here, this Cameyo logo would be the customer's logo. You'll notice up here the lock, everything's running in HTTPS. This is probably the most secure way to deliver applications to users. The other way to do it is, as Daniel mentioned, is via PWA. So you simply just click this link right here and copy this URL. And then you just go over to your admin console, select devices, Chrome, apps and extensions, users and browsers. And we're going to add real quick. We're going to put that URL in here, select separate window, click save. And we will see, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to force install it onto the Cameyo desktop, but I'm also going to force install it onto the taskbar. I click save, and then anywhere from, say, 30 seconds to a minute, the icon for Notepad is going to pop up right here, and you'll be able to access it. The user will be able to access it. Now, the third way to do it is use a Cameyo portal, which gives you the ability to deliver all of your applications to the users. We follow all your rules in your Google Groups, etc., or your Active Directory, or whatever you're using. So the end user is going to see the applications that they have available to them, and they simply just click on the application and it launches. So just like a cloud desktop. Okay. And one thing while that's opening there, I just want to make sure that we cover is security. There you see Notepad is already available, and now I can go ahead and launch it as an application. So you'll see here that we seamlessly integrate with your SSO provider. So what we're doing here is allowing users to log in with their corporate credentials, and then they have access to the applications in the way that you want to deliver them to them, as well as only the applications that they have access to based on the user groups that you've set up. And you can see we integrate with all of the different SSO providers, your Google, your Microsoft, Okta, OAuth 2, etc. So very easy to do. Getting set up with Google is seamless. Within just by adding this and logging in with your credentials, you will have immediate access to your Google Drive, your OneDrive, etc. So it's very seamless. It happens in just a couple minutes. So I want to be conscious of time. So what I've been able to show you in just a couple minutes here is how simple it is to get up and running with Cameyo, how easy it is to get applications to the end users, as well as showing you the end user experience in terms of PWAs being launched from a Chromebook. So I'll stop there and we can answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that demo, Andrew. That was great. And thank you so much for the information as well, Daniel. We did have one question come through the chat here. Chris Lambert asked, auto updates are wonderful, but how do you audit or report on the current status and version of each enterprise Chrome OS device? Daniel or Cody, do one of you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take it. That's fairly easy to do in the admin console where you're managing the Chrome OS devices. There's actually a device report where it pulls down and it has a lot of information such as serial number, who it's currently provisioned to, the user. All these things are updatable by you inside the admin console, but it also has a lot of details from OS policy compliance. So let you know, is it in compliance of the OS policy that you've set, whether it's on the latest release or, down one from the current release. And if it's compliant, meaning that it's already updated, is it pending an update? Is it currently connected to online? A lot of information on there. That's a very easy report to run and just view quickly. You can also download it as a CSV file and share it out.
Wonderful. Thanks for that answer there. And we have another question, and this is to Cameyo. Is app performance tied to the Cameyo server's resources?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is yes. And so one of the nice things about Cameyo is it's extremely cost effective, which we really didn't get into. We utilize advanced cloud native features like elasticity and what we call usage optimization, where we're putting servers into hibernation mode when they're not in use. So it's saving the customer thousands of dollars on wasted server costs. But in terms of the because we're multi-session, we're able to get dozens of users onto a single server. And so that really does bring CPU, RAM, et cetera, into play. So what we do is we really try to focus on the number of concurrent users. And we say, okay, if we've got a productivity application, an ERP application that's relatively lightweight, we have 10 or 15 users, we know that you're probably only going to need a 2 CPU server. And then what we do behind that is we set up an elastic cluster. So say everybody starts printing at the same time, or there's more demand on the environment. So those elastic servers will be spinning up in the background without the users even knowing about it. So you don't have to worry about having a massive machine just in case you have 400 people jump on at the same time. Those servers are going to be spinning up automatically in the background.
Wonderful. Thank you for that comprehensive answer there. So we have two more questions that are kind of relevant to each other. So are there any applications that you can't install or run with Cameyo? For example, programs with Outlook add-ins, etc. And on top of that, can you run graphically intensive programs such as 3D design programs like AutoCAD that are needed to program fabrication equipment?
Absolutely. So let me tackle the last one first. We absolutely run GPU applications. Most of our education customers, and we have a mix. The majority of our customers are enterprise, but we also have education customers as well. I can't think of one that doesn't run AutoCAD on their Chromebooks to their users. So we absolutely do have the ability to deliver applications, GPU applications. In terms of applications that don't run on Cameyo, any application that will run on a Windows server will work with Cameyo. The limitations, a couple of limitations, this goes outside of the applications, are things like USB devices, redirect. Most modern USB devices will work with Cameyo, but there's some older ones that may not. So one of the things I didn't mention in the presentation is that Cameyo support is always free. We stand behind our product. We're never going to charge for support. And we work with you very closely to determine what we can and can't do. And we're always going to be upfront with you. But I would say 90% of the use cases that we've come across, we've been able to support. And I think it's one of the reasons why we have such a high net promoter score at plus 70, which is about 20 to 30 points, in some cases 40 points higher than some of our competitors. We really stand behind this product. We do everything we possibly can to make your deployment successful.
Wonderful. And that looks like all of the questions from the chat. If anyone has anything else here before we hop out of here, please post it in the chat here now. I would really like to thank Andrew, Daniel, and Cody for your time and the great presentation. We did have one more question come through that we can answer as well. Can you host SQL-based applications?
Absolutely. The vast majority of our customers are enterprise customers. I'll give an example of Sanmina, one of the largest manufacturing Fortune 500 customer. They use Cameyo to run their ERP, to deliver their ERP system to their customers. I mean, to their end users, excuse me, all over the world. And that's obviously, they've got, multiple SQL databases, and back-end systems that they're connecting to Cameyo. Now, what's interesting is there are a lot of organizations that run in a hybrid environment. So you might have Cameyo running fully hosted, and then they've got back-end systems like SQL databases, et cetera. And so we simply just set up a cloud VPN that goes back and forth from the two. And then there's no latency whatsoever. Obviously, the ability to deliver Cameyo in the same environment as those back-end databases, that ensures there's no latency whatsoever. So we really give you a lot of flexibility around that. But the purpose of Cameyo, our focus is on business critical applications. So that's what we were built for. We're extremely cost effective, getting the price down at a price point, or getting the cost down. So the price point is at a place where organizations of pretty much any size, but especially large organizations, can affordably deliver these applications on devices like Chromebooks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we did have two questions that were submitted before the presentation as well. I'm going to go ahead and go through one of them. And if anyone would like to answer this here, we can kind of go through that too. So the first one is Microsoft RDS in case of self-hosted version required? Does the solution in a comfortable central admin work without Google Workspace too? And what about Samsung DEX? Does Cameyo work there as well?
Yes and yes to the first. So yes, you in a self-hosted environment and in our fully hosted, you do need an RDS cal because we are running on a Windows server. Now, if you already have your RDS cals, those should work just fine. With our fully hosted service, they're included in the subscription cost. So you don't even have to worry about them. We cover them. And we take care of making sure that you have the appropriate licensing with Microsoft. So the answer is yes on Google Workspaces, if I remember the question correctly. So we seamlessly integrate with Google Workspaces, but you don't have to have it. we integrate with your Oktas, your Pings, Office 365, whatever you're currently using. We're going to utilize that. And then we even have the ability, if you so choose, you can generate a Cameyo username and login. Now, we are very focused on zero trust, so we don't recommend that. But if that's something that you want to do and provide a username and password to your users through Cameyo, you can do that as well.
And
And
Andrew,
what was it?
it
Go
wasn't
ahead.
directly part of the question, but just to comment on Chrome OS. Obviously, Chrome OS works very well with Workspace, but there is also no requirement there. So a huge amount of our enterprise customers that use Chrome OS would not be Workspace customers. So we integrate again with, as Andrew said, your SAML SSO solution on Chrome OS to use your existing identity to log into Chromebooks. We using Cameyo, we let you to access all of your Office applications if that's what you use, integrations with OneDrive and that as well. So like, just to be clear that you can use Chrome plus Cameyo without being Workspace.
Excellent. And that goes to the joint commitment to security that Daniel touched on. I touched on a little bit during the presentation, but Daniel mentioned that we ensure that all your server ports and your firewall ports are blocked to the open internet. So we've spent a lot of time working on security. Our CTO and founder, as a matter of fact, comes from the security industry. He has more than a dozen patents in the security space. He's one of the inventors of host intrusion prevention system. We're ISO 27001 certified. We take security, privacy very serious. Oh, and another thing too, if you're a global organization, you are actually going to run servers only in your location. So if you're in Europe, you're only going to run servers in Europe. If you're in United States, you're only going to run them in the United States. And even if you travel from Europe to the United States through geolocation, you would actually connect to the closest server. However, if you wanted to say, look, our European employees must be on a European data center, we can do that, and very easily for you.
Wonderful. Thank you for the answers there. And we have two more questions here. The first is local printing possible? And then the second is, what bandwidth is going to be required per user?
Oh, yes. One of the things I should have shown in the demo was printing. Jacob, would it be okay if I shared my screen just for a second?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So the answer to your question is absolutely yes. So let me go back to Word here. So hopefully you can see my screen, but if I do say Control P or something, or go in and come in here, print. So you can see the way we've got it set up is with this Cameyo virtual printer. And what that's doing is basically saying, okay, I'm going to take whatever the browser's telling me that the end user has access to. And then I'm going to print to that device. And so if I were to click print, I believe my network printer is on over here. I would see, yeah, there's my LaserJet right there. I'd go ahead and click on that. It should be auto selected. But if you had 4 or 5 network printers that you had access to, if you had a print server or something like that, that's saying, okay, here are the printers that you have access to, they would be here, and then you just select the printer and then click print, and it would print the way you would expect it to print. Great question.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And the other part is there a bandwidth that's required per user for Cameyo?
Bandwidth, no, but however, so Cameyo runs HTML5. So if you can stream a video from Netflix or Hulu or one of the other providers, you will have a seamless experience with Cameyo. But we do have we do a lot of work in Central America and South America where on occasion the Wi-Fi networks, the networks there aren't as reliable. And so we have a feature called connection resiliency. And so what that does is if the Wi-Fi is popping up and down and you lose connection, and you can even lose connection for up to 5 minutes, your session is not going to end. And so you won't lose any information. We also utilize the software's autosave features. So if it were to disconnect unexpectedly and the session were to end, you would just simply go back to the auto-saved file, or the auto-saved, I guess it is file, version, I should say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And that is it that we have here now. If anyone has any additional questions here, please go ahead and post them in the chat here. We will also be sending out the recording of this webinar. We will have all of our contact information. You're welcome to set up a demo directly with Cameyo. They can walk you through their entire product. We can speak from the Dido side around anything regarding Chrome as well. And we will make sure that everyone gets a copy of this recording too. So thank you all once again for joining us today. Thank you to the speakers, Andrew, Daniel, and Cody, for your time. Really appreciate everyone joining us here. So I'm going to stop the recording and hope everyone has a great rest of your Wednesday.